The Last Architect. Chapter 1. The Inheritance. My name is Alexandra Alex Kane, and I design buildings for the dead. Not mausoleums or crematoriums, nothing so obvious. I'm a commercial architect specializing in adaptive reuse, which means I take dying buildings and give them new life. Old factories become luxury lofts. Abandoned warehouses transform into art galleries. Historic schools become boutique hotels. I'm in the business of architectural resurrection, which is ironic considering I'm about to inherit a building that might be better off dead. The letter from the law firm arrives on a Tuesday morning in November, delivered to my office in Chicago's West Loop. The return address is from Hartford, Connecticut, a city I haven't visited in 15 years, not since I left for college and swore I'd never go back. Kane and Associates, attorneys at Lowry Estate of Dr. Marion Westbrook. My hands shake as I open it. Marion Westbrook, my grandmother, the woman who raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8 years old. The woman who taught me to love buildings, to see architecture as more than just shelter. The woman I haven't spoken to in 7 years, not since the fight that ended with me screaming that I never wanted to see her again. Dear Ms. Kane, we regret to inform you of the death of your grandmother, Dr. Marion Westbrook, on October 28, 2025. As the executor of her estate, we are writing to inform you that you are the sole beneficiary of her will. Dr. Westbrook has left you the following. 1. The Westbrook Building, located at 847 Asylum Avenue, Hartford, Connecticut, including all contents therein. 2. A sealed letter, to be opened only by you, only inside the Westbrook Building. 3. A stipulation that you must spend 7 consecutive nights inside the building before the deed can be transferred to your name. This residency must begin within 30 days of this notification. Failure to complete this requirement will result in the property reverting to Yale University as per the alternate beneficiary designation. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss the terms of the bequest. Sincerely, Robert Kane, Escort. I read the letter 3 times, each reading making my chest tighter. 7 nights. Inside the Westbrook Building. The building where my grandmother conducted her research for 40 years. The building where she developed her theories about architectural memory, the pseudo-scientific nonsense that destroyed her academic reputation, and eventually, I believed, her sanity. The building I was forbidden from entering as a child, because Marion said it was too dangerous for young minds. The building I've seen in my nightmares for 15 years. I should throw the letter away. I should call the law firm and tell them to give the building to Yale and send me whatever money remains after settling the estate. I should forget that Marion Westbrook ever existed. But I don't. Because despite everything, despite the years of silence, despite the bitterness and anger, despite the fact that I built a life specifically to be nothing like her, I need to know why. Why did she leave me the building? What's in the sealed letter? What did she mean by too dangerous for young minds? And beneath all those questions, one I'm afraid to acknowledge. Was she right? My business partner, David Chen, finds me still holding the letter 2 hours later, staring at my computer screen without seeing it. Alex, you okay? You've been frozen since I got back from lunch. David and I started Kane and Chen Architects 5 years ago, fresh out of graduate school at MIT, full of ambition and the arrogance of youth. We've grown into one of Chicago's most sought-after adaptive reuse specialists, taking on projects other architects won't touch, buildings with toxic histories, bad reputations, spaces that need not just renovation, but redemption. We've turned a former psychiatric hospital into mixed-income housing. We've converted a closed prison into an arts centre. We specialise in buildings that carry weight, that need more than just new paint and modern HVAC systems. But I've never told David about the Westbrook Building. I've never told him about Marion or her research or why I left Connecticut at 18 and never looked back. My grandmother died, I say, the words feeling strange in my mouth. I haven't said my grandmother aloud in years. She left me her building in Hartford. I'm sorry. David sits in the chair across from my desk, his expression shifting from concern to professional curiosity. Were you close? Once, a long time ago, before she... I pause, trying to figure out how to explain. Before she became obsessed with her research. What kind of building? 8-story mixed use, built in 1923, Beaux-Arts style, prime downtown location, structurally sound as far as I know, but it's been essentially abandoned except for her laboratory and apartment. David's eyes light up. He's a sucker for historic properties, especially ones with good bones. That sounds amazing. What condition is it in? I don't know. I haven't been inside in 15 years. 15 years? Why? He stops himself, reading something in my expression. Sorry, none of my business. There's a condition to the inheritance, I continue. I have to spend 7 consecutive nights inside the building, alone, starting within the next 30 days. If I don't, the building goes to Yale. David whistles low. That's unusual. Is that even legal? Apparently. My grandmother had a very thorough attorney. Why would she require that? I take a deep breath. This is the part I've never told anyone, not even David, my closest friend and business partner for 5 years. My grandmother was Dr. Marion Westbrook. She was a cognitive neuroscientist at Yale who specialized in memory research. In the early 1980s, she developed a theory she called architectural memory, the idea that buildings can store and replay human experiences under certain conditions. David's expression shifts from curiosity to confusion. Like recording devices? Not exactly. She believed that spaces where intense emotions occur, trauma, joy, profound grief, can somehow record those experiences in the physical structure itself. She thought buildings were like giant organic recording media, storing fragments of the lives lived inside them. Not metaphorically, literally. That's not how architecture works. I know. The scientific community knew it too. She was laughed out of academia, lost her tenure at Yale in 1988, became a pariah. She spent the last 40 years trying to prove her theory, conducting experiments in that building, alone, growing more obsessed, more isolated, more convinced that everyone else was wrong and she was the only one who understood the truth. And you grew up with her? After my parents died, yes, from age 8 to 18, 10 years living on the top floor of that building, watching her descend into obsession. She used to take me into her laboratory after school, show me her equipment, her data, try to make me see what she saw. I can feel my throat tightening. I never could. I just saw an old building with weird acoustics and a grandmother who talked to empty rooms. But she insisted the building was alive with memories, that if I listened carefully, if I opened myself to it, I'd hear them too. David is quiet for a moment, watching me carefully. Did you ever hear anything? I don't answer immediately, because the truth is complicated. The truth is that when I was 14, I thought I heard something. A woman crying in room 3C. But it could have been wind through the ventilation system. Could have been my imagination. Could have been the power of suggestion from years of Marion's constant talk about the building's memory. Could have been anything except what Marion insisted it was. The recorded consciousness of someone who had died in that room decades earlier. No, I lie. I never heard anything, because there's nothing to hear. Buildings are matter, stone and steel and glass. They don't remember. They don't feel. They're not alive. So why go back? Why spend 7 nights in a place that holds nothing but bad memories? Because she left me a letter. And despite everything, despite all the years of anger and silence, I need to know what it says. David nods slowly. When do you leave? I'm thinking Monday. That gives me 5 days to brief you on current projects and make arrangements. Take whatever time you need. I can handle things here. He pauses. Alex, be careful. Not because I believe in your grandmother's theories, but because spending a week alone in an abandoned building with ghosts from your past, that's hard on anyone. After he leaves, I sit in my office as afternoon fades to evening, looking at the letter, trying to prepare myself for what returning to Hartford might mean. I spend the next 5 days in a kind of frenzy, briefing David on every active project, organising my files, working late into each night as if being busy enough will keep me from thinking about what I'm about to do. But in the quiet moments, the anxiety creeps in. I start researching the Westbrook Building online, trying to approach it clinically as just another adaptive reuse project. Understanding the bones, the history, the potential. The building has a complicated history. Constructed in 1923 as the headquarters for Hartford Mutual Insurance Company, it originally housed 500 employees across 8 floors of offices. Beaux-Arts architecture with neoclassical details, fluted columns, ornate cornices, a grand marble lobby that photographs from the era show as breathtaking. The architect was Marcus Westbrook, my great-great-grandfather, who designed it at the height of his career. But Hartford Mutual went bankrupt during the Great Depression. The building sat empty for 10 years before being repurposed during World War II as a regional headquarters for wartime manufacturing coordination. After the war, it changed hands multiple times. A department store in the late 40s, a bank in the 50s, briefly a hotel in the early 60s, various office tenants through the 70s. By 1978, it was mostly vacant, too expensive to maintain and too valuable to demolish. That's when Marion bought it for almost nothing, $50,000 for an 8-story building in downtown Hartford. She converted the first floor into her laboratory and the top floor into her living quarters. The middle 6 floors remained largely empty, huge open floor plans with soaring ceilings and original architectural details, slowly decaying from neglect and water damage. I find old news articles about Marion from the early days, before the fall from grace. Yale neuroscientist develops groundbreaking memory theory from 1981 shows a photograph of her in her lab, at Yale, young and brilliant, surrounded by equipment. Dr. Westbrook's research could revolutionize understanding of human consciousness. From 1983 quotes other scientists calling her work provocative and paradigm-shifting. Then the turning point, controversial study questioned by peers from 1986. Yale professors' unorthodox methods under investigation from 1987. Dr. Westbrook resigns amid research scandal from 1988. I can't find details about the scandal itself, just vague references to inappropriate research methods and ethical violations. Marion never talked about what happened. She just became more convinced that the establishment was trying to silence her because her discoveries threatened their understanding of reality. She moved permanently into the Westbrook Building and never left. For 40 years, that building was her laboratory, her home, her obsession. And for 10 of those years, it was my prison. On Sunday night, I can't sleep. I lie in my apartment in Chicago, looking at the ceiling, remembering the vast empty floors of the Westbrook Building, the echo of footsteps in the marble lobby, the strange acoustics that made sound travel in unexpected ways, the smell of old paper and limestone dust, Marion's laboratory with its banks of computers and sensors, recording endlessly, documenting phenomena I couldn't see. And I remember the last time I saw her, I was 27, living in Chicago, building my career. She called and asked me to visit, said she had something important to show me, something that would finally make me understand. I went. Against my better judgment, I went. She took me through the building, showing me 7 years' worth of new research, recordings of voices in empty rooms, temperature anomalies, electromagnetic disturbances, all carefully documented, all meticulously analysed. She was so excited, so convinced that she was on the verge of proving everything. And I looked at her data, genuinely trying to see what she saw, and all I could see was a lonely old woman talking to ghosts, a brilliant mind eating itself with obsession. "You still don't believe me," she said, and the disappointment in her voice cut like a blade. "Marion, I want to believe you. But buildings don't have consciousness. They don't store memories. What you're experiencing, the sounds, the temperature changes, there are logical explanations. Old buildings do strange things. Acoustics, thermal properties, electromagnetic interference from old wiring." "You're afraid," she interrupted. "You're afraid that if you admit I'm right, it means you wasted 15 years running from the truth. It means you have to face what you felt in this building when you were a child. What you heard, what you saw." "I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. There's nothing here except an obsessed woman who destroyed her career chasing shadows." The words came out harsher than I intended. Marion's face went pale. "Get out," she said quietly. "Marion, get out of my building. Get out of my life. If you can't see the truth that's right in front of you, then you're not the granddaughter I thought I raised." I left, and I never went back. For 7 years, I ignored her calls, deleted her emails, refused to engage. I told myself I was protecting my sanity, protecting myself from being dragged into her delusion. Now she's dead, and she's left me the one thing I never wanted. That building with all its ghosts, real or imagined, with 7 nights and a sealed letter and questions I'm not sure I want answered. Chapter 2. The arrival. Monday morning, I board a plane at O'Hare. The flight to Hartford is short, just over 2 hours, but feels longer, time stretching as anxiety builds. I've packed a week's worth of clothes, my laptop and work files, a sleeping bag since I'm not sure what condition the furniture is in, flashlights, a first aid kit. I'm treating this like an urban exploration project, camping in an abandoned building. I've done similar things before for preliminary site assessments. This is no different. Except it is different, because this isn't just any building. This is Marion's building. And somewhere inside it is a letter that might explain why my brilliant grandmother destroyed her career and spent 40 years alone talking to walls. Hartford in November is grey and cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. I rent a car at the airport, a sensible Toyota, nothing flashy, and drive through neighbourhoods I half remember from childhood. The city has changed. Some areas have gentrified, old warehouses converted to lofts like the projects I work on in Chicago. Other neighbourhoods have declined further, boarded up storefronts and empty lots where buildings used to stand. But Asylum Avenue looks much as I remember it. A mix of historic buildings in various states of repair, some carefully restored, others slowly crumbling. Banks and insurance companies, art deco facades and Beaux-Arts cornices, the architectural bones of Hartford's early 20th century prosperity, still visible beneath decades of deferred maintenance. The Westbrook Building stands at the corner of Asylum and Ford Streets, and seeing it again after 15 years makes something twist in my chest. 8 stories of limestone and granite, with tall windows that would have filled the interior with natural light in its heyday. Ornate stone details, carved foliate patterns around the windows, classical pilasters between floors, a heavy cornice at the roofline. The ground floor has large display windows that are covered from the inside with heavy curtains. The entrance is a massive bronze door with Art Deco geometric patterns, tarnished green with age but still imposing. It's beautiful, even neglected, even with water stains on the facade and missing pieces of ornamental stonework. It's beautiful. And I hate that my first thought is professional assessment. This building could be spectacular with proper restoration, rather than the personal history it represents. Robert Kane is waiting outside, standing next to a black sedan. He's older than his voice on the phone suggested, maybe 70, with silver hair and a kind face that reminds me a bit of Mr. Rogers. He's wearing a three-piece suit, despite the casual nature of our meeting, which tells me he's from an older generation that still believes in formal presentation. Ms. Kane. He extends his hand and his grip is firm, warm. I'm glad you came. Your grandmother spoke of you often, especially in her final months. She did? The words come out sharper than I intend. That's interesting, considering we hadn't spoken in 7 years. His expression doesn't change, but I see sympathy in his eyes. Yes, I know. She was deeply saddened by the estrangement. But she understood. She said you needed time. She said you were brilliant like her, but more practical. She said you'd understand eventually, that the building would show you what it showed her. A chill runs through me that has nothing to do with the November wind. Mr. Kane, my grandmother was mentally ill. Whatever she told you about this building, whatever theories she had, they weren't based in reality. I'm here to fulfill the terms of her will, spend 7 nights, and then decide whether to sell the property or renovate it. I'm not here to validate her delusions. He nods slowly, not arguing. Of course. I should tell you, I've been Marion's attorney for 22 years. I handled all her affairs, maintained the building systems, arranged for basic maintenance. I know the building well. And I've heard. He pauses, choosing words carefully. I've experienced things here that I can't easily explain. Like what? Sounds, voices, sometimes in empty rooms, visual anomalies, shadows where no shadows should be, given the light sources, temperature fluctuations that don't correspond to the HVAC system. Your grandmother documented all of it extensively. She said the building was most active during certain hours, when the conditions were right. She said it was like a radio signal, always broadcasting, but you need the right receiver to pick it up. I force myself to breathe evenly, to keep my voice clinical. Old buildings make sounds, thermal expansion, wind through gaps in the structure, acoustics that create unexpected effects. There are logical explanations for everything you're describing. Perhaps. Or perhaps we simply don't understand the science yet. He pulls an envelope from his briefcase. It's thick, cream-coloured paper, with my name written across it in Marion's precise handwriting. The envelope is sealed with red wax, stamped with an ornate W, for Westbrook. This is your grandmother's letter. Per the will, you're to read it inside the building, but I'm not to oversee when or where. That's between you and Marion. He hands me a ring of keys. Front door. You'll need to unlock both the outer and inner vestibule doors. Apartment on the 8th floor. 2 keys. The deadbolt and the door lock. Laboratory on the 1st floor. Everything else is unlocked. The utilities are all functioning. Heat, water, electricity. There's a landline telephone in the apartment, but no internet service. Your grandmother disconnected it years ago. She said, it interfered with the building's signal, I finish. Yes, that sounds like her. He gives me a small smile. The landline can make outgoing calls any time, but incoming calls are restricted to certain hours, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., per a setting Marion had configured. Something about minimizing electromagnetic interference during her recording hours. I'll call you each evening at 7 p.m. to confirm you're still in residence. That's part of my executor duties. What if there's an emergency? There's a panic button in the apartment connected to emergency services. And you have your cell phone, though reception inside the building is spotty at best. Use your judgment. But, per the will, anything short of life-threatening means you forfeit the inheritance if you leave before completing the 7 nights. 7 consecutive nights, I confirm? Yes, and they must be complete nights. From sunset to sunrise, essentially. You can leave during daylight hours if needed for supplies or fresh air, but you must be present in the building from dusk until dawn. He hands me a folder. Building systems documentation, where the electrical panels are, how to reset the water if needed, that sort of thing. Marion was meticulous about maintenance, even as her health declined. The building is safe, structurally sound. We had an inspector review it last month as part of estate preparation. What about the middle floors? The empty ones? His expression shifts slightly. They're accessible. Marion rarely went to them in her later years, but the structure is sound. Some water damage from roof leaks that have since been repaired. Mostly, it's just empty. 6 floors of empty offices, gathering dust. Or gathering memories, according to Marion. Yes. He looks at me carefully. Ms. Kane, Alex, if I may, I don't know what you'll experience over the next 7 days, but I want you to know that whatever your grandmother was, whatever mistake she made as a guardian, she loved you deeply. Everything she did, every hour she spent in this building, she believed she was pursuing truth. She believed she was doing important work. Whether she was right or wrong, her sincerity was absolute. I take the envelope, the keys, the folder, feeling their weight. 7 days, 7 nights, 1 building, 1 letter, and the ghost of a grandmother I never really knew how to love. Thank you, Mr. Kane. I appreciate your candor. I'll check in at 7 p.m. If you need anything before then, my number is in the folder. And Alex? He pauses. Be open, that's all I ask. Be open to possibility. After he drives away, I stand alone on the sidewalk in front of the Westbrook Building, looking up at 8 stories of limestone and history, and whatever else might be waiting inside. The bronze door is heavy, requiring both hands to pull it open. It swings inward with a low groan, revealing a vestibule maybe 8 feet deep. The floor is mosaic tile, geometric patterns in black, white, and gold, grimy now, but still beautiful. There's a second set of doors, equally heavy, with frosted glass panels etched with Art Deco designs. Temperature control. In older buildings, the vestibule creates an airlock, keeping weather and temperature changes from affecting the interior directly. Smart design for a time before modern HVAC systems. But as I step into the vestibule and the outer door swings shut behind me, cutting off the street noise, I feel something change. The air becomes denser, heavier, like atmospheric pressure increasing. My ears pop slightly. The temperature shifts, not warmer or colder exactly, but different, as though I've crossed into a space with its own microclimate. I stand very still, eyes closed, just feeling. This is what I do with every building I'm assessing. I try to sense its character, its bones, the way space moves and breathes. Every building has a personality, a presence that comes from the combination of materials and design and history. I've always been good at reading buildings, understanding them in ways that go beyond technical specs and structural surveys. This building feels alive, not in the way Marion claimed, not with consciousness or recorded memories, but alive in the way all old buildings are alive, with creaks and sighs and the subtle movements of stone and wood settling over decades, alive with history, with the accumulated weight of a century of human presence. I take a breath, unlock the inner doors and step into the lobby, and stop breathing for a moment. The lobby is exactly as I remember from childhood, but also transformed. The basic structure is unchanged. The marble floors, geometric patterns in white and black and rose-coloured stone. The soaring ceiling, at least 20 feet high, with elaborate coffered details. The grand staircase leading up to the upper floors, limestone steps worn smooth by a century of footsteps. The original light fixtures, Art Deco bronze sconces that would have held gas lights originally, later converted to electric. But every surface is covered with papers. Thousands upon thousands of sheets, tacked to the walls, spread across tables that have been set up throughout the space, pinned to corkboards, creating a kind of three-dimensional timeline of Marian's research. Photographs. Dozens of photographs of empty rooms, each labelled with dates and times and notations about phenomena observed. Diagrams of the building's floor plan, with areas circled and annotated: Room 5C, temperature anomaly, 11/17/2019, 2:24 a.m. Third floor new corner, children's voices, 03/15/2020, 2:47 p.m. Basement storage, EMF spike, 08/03/2021, 11:12 p.m. Handwritten notes in Marian's precise script, describing observations, recording environmental conditions, noting correlations between buildings' history and phenomena experienced. Printouts of what look like audio waveforms, with peaks and valleys highlighted. Temperature charts, electromagnetic field readings, barometric pressure logs, and everywhere, journal pages, Marian's thoughts, questions, theories, frustrations, 40 years of dedicated observation, all laid out like evidence at a crime scene. I walk slowly through the space, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of documentation. This isn't the chaotic accumulation of a delusional mind. This is systematic, methodical research, the kind of documentation that would be at home in any scientific laboratory. Everything dated, everything cross-referenced, everything organised into categories and subcategories. One wall appears to be dedicated to what Marian called primary phenomena, the most frequently occurring and well-documented events. Each phenomenon has its own section with printed labels. Catherine Holloway, Room 5C, phenomenon, female voice crying, frost formation on windows, temperature drops. First documented, 11/17/1992. Frequency, 15 to 20 times per year, concentrated in November. Historical context, CH, age 28, died 11/17/1952, fell from 5th floor window, Wilhelm Gross. Basement level, phenomenon. Male, voice speaking German, electromagnetic disturbances, sound of physical struggle. First documented, 08/03/1994. Frequency, 3 to 5 times per year, most common during thunderstorms. Historical context, WG, age 47, building maintenance worker, died 08/03/1934, found in basement. The children. 3rd floor. Phenomenon. Children's laughter, footsteps, crying, sounds of play. First documented 03/12/1997. Frequency, weekly, most common, Tuesday, Thursday, 2:54 p.m. Historical context, daycare operated on 3rd floor, 1972-1979. There are 14 primary phenomena listed. 14 separate echoes, as Marian called them. 14 stories, preserved somehow in the structure of this building. I move to another wall covered with Marian's theoretical framework. Here, the documentation becomes more academic. Citations from physics journals, neuroscience papers, architectural acoustic studies. Equations I don't fully understand. Diagrams showing electromagnetic field patterns. Speculation about quantum consciousness, and non-local information storage. In the centre of all this, Marian's core hypothesis, written in large letters on a whiteboard. Architectural memory. Hypothesis. Buildings with specific properties, material composition, geometric design, acoustic characteristics, can store emotional, experiential data generated by human consciousness. This storage occurs through mechanisms related to electromagnetic field interaction, quantum entanglement, and resonance phenomena. Under appropriate conditions, stored data can be played back as sensory phenomena perceivable to sensitive individuals. It's not pseudoscience, I realize with a start. It's speculative science, taking established principles from multiple fields and extrapolating in unconventional directions. Marion wasn't just talking to ghosts. She was developing a genuine theoretical framework to explain observations that mainstream science refused to acknowledge. Whether she was right or wrong, this is the work of a rigorous, disciplined mind. One particular note catches my eye, tacked to a board near the staircase. It's dated November 14th, 2010, the date I remember seeing in earlier documents. AK, age 14, experienced acoustic phenomenon in room 3C today. Subject reported hearing a woman crying, became visibly distressed, refused to continue session. I perhaps pushed too hard. Subject has shown sensitivity since childhood, but actively resists acknowledging it. Note: subject may have inherited sensitivity from maternal grandmother's line. My mother exhibited similar traits, but suppressed them. Must proceed more carefully with AK. Cannot force understanding. The building will reveal itself when she's ready, or not at all. Her choice must be respected. I feel a lump in my throat. Marion knew she was pushing me, knew I was resistant, and she backed off. But by then, the damage was done. I was already convinced she was delusional, already planning my escape from this building and everything it represented. I spend another hour walking through the first floor, examining Marion's laboratory space. It takes up what would have been the main office area, maybe 3,000 square feet of open floor plan. Banks of computers, most of them older models, but still functional based on the blinking power lights. Servers humming quietly. Multiple monitors displaying what look like real-time data feeds from sensors throughout the building. Microphones in every room, each labelled and connected to a central recording system. Electromagnetic field meters. Professional-grade equipment, not the ghost-hunting toys you can buy online. Infrared cameras. Seismic sensors that Marion believed could detect minute vibrations caused by whatever mechanism created the phenomena she was studying. Temperature sensors everywhere, creating a detailed thermal map of the building. It's impressive. More than impressive. It's the kind of comprehensive monitoring system you'd find in a serious research facility. Marion may have been isolated from the academic community, but she never stopped thinking like a scientist. I find her workstation, a large desk covered with notebooks, the most recent ones dated within the last few months of her life. I pick up the one labelled October 2025 and flip to the last entry. October 15th, 2025. The cancer has progressed to the point where morphine is necessary for pain management. Cognition still clear, but I know I have weeks at most, perhaps days. I've arranged everything. Robert knows what to do. The building is ready. All the documentation is organised in room 7A. 40 years of work, waiting for someone who will understand. AK will inherit the building. I'm certain she'll come despite our estrangement. She's curious, like I was. She's an architect, so she understands buildings in ways even I don't. And whether she admits it or not, she felt the building's presence as a child. I saw it in her eyes, in the way she would freeze sometimes, listening to something only she could hear. She'll try to dismiss it at first, try to find rational explanations. That's fine. That's healthy skepticism. But the building will show her. The building always shows the truth to those willing to see. 7 nights. That's how long it took me when I first moved in permanently in 1988. 7 nights of observation before I could no longer deny what I was experiencing. before the building trusted me enough to reveal its full nature. I'm betting on 7 nights for AK2. By the 7th night, she'll understand. And then she'll face the choice. I couldn't. Continue the work with the credibility and scientific connections I no longer have, or walk away and let 40 years of research die with me. I hope she continues, but if she doesn't, I'll understand. This building asks a lot. It shows you things you might prefer not to see. It makes demands on your perception of reality. Not everyone can handle that, but I believe in her. I believe she's stronger than I was, and I believe the building chose her long ago as the one who would carry this work forward. If you're reading this, Alex, know that I love you. I always have, even when you were angry with me, even when you thought I was crazy. I understood your fear because I felt it too at the beginning, but I hope you'll give the building and me a chance. 7 nights. That's all I ask. 7 nights of openness. And then decide. That's the last entry. Marion died 13 days later, on October 28th. I close the notebook and sit in Marion's chair, surrounded by her life's work, feeling the weight of her expectations. She believed in this building, believed in me, believed that 7 nights would be enough to make me see what she saw, and I'm terrified that she might be right. The apartment is on the 8th floor, accessible by the grand staircase or an elevator that Marion had installed in the 1990s. I take the stairs, needing the physical exertion to clear my head. The climb gives me a chance to see the building's interior structure. Each landing has tall windows that would have provided natural light to the stairwell during the day. The steps are limestone, worn smooth in the centres where generations of feet have climbed. The iron railings are original, Art Deco styling with geometric patterns. Everything speaks of quality, of an era when buildings were constructed to last centuries. The 8th floor is different from the others. Where floors 2 through 7 are vast open plans that would have been subdivided into offices, the 8th floor has been converted into actual living space. Marion's apartment takes up maybe a third of the floor. The rest is storage and mechanical rooms. The apartment itself is surprisingly livable. A galley kitchen with updated appliances from maybe the 1990s. A bathroom with vintage fixtures, but functional plumbing. A bedroom with a simple bed, neatly made. A living area with comfortable furniture, bookshelves covering every wall, more notebooks and papers and photographs. And windows. Tall windows facing south and west, offering views of downtown Hartford. In the fading afternoon light, I can see the city spreading out below, office buildings and churches, the Connecticut River in the distance, bare November trees marking parks and residential neighborhoods. Marion lived here for 40 years, alone, surrounded by her research, convinced she was right, unable to convince anyone else. What must that have been like? To know something, to believe with absolute certainty that you know something, and have the entire world tell you you're wrong. I unpack my things, setting up a kind of base camp. My sleeping bag goes on Marion's bed. I'll use her sheets and blankets, but having my own sleeping bag feels like maintaining some barrier between her space and mine. My laptop on the kitchen table. Food in the refrigerator. I stopped at a grocery store on the way here, stocking up on basics. By 5 p.m, the sun is setting, filling the apartment with orange light. I make myself a simple dinner. Pasta with jarred sauce, nothing fancy. I eat standing at the kitchen window, watching the city transform as lights begin to appear in buildings across Hartford. At 7 p.m, the landline rings. I answer. Miss Kane, this is Robert Kane, checking in as required by the will. Can you confirm you're in residence at the Westbrook Building? Yes, first night of 7. Excellent. How are you finding the building? Overwhelming. There's 40 years of research here. Your grandmother was nothing if not thorough. I'll call again tomorrow evening at the same time. If you need anything before then, my number is in the folder I gave you. Mr. Kane, what should I expect? A long pause. I can't answer that. Everyone experiences the building differently. Your grandmother would say it shows you what you need to see, what you're ready to see. My advice? Keep an open mind, but also keep your skepticism. Both are valuable. After he hangs up, I'm alone with the building's silence. Except it's not really silent. Buildings are never truly silent. There's always sound, heating systems, structural settling, wind against windows, the ambient noise of a city filtering in from outside. But this building's sounds feel different, purposeful almost, as though the building is breathing, thinking, waiting. I try to work, opening my laptop and reviewing project files David sent me, but I can't concentrate. My attention keeps drifting to Marion's notebooks, to the documented phenomena, to the question that's been growing in my mind since I walked into the lobby. What if she was right? By 11 p.m, I'm exhausted. The stress of travel, the emotional weight of being back in this building, the sheer volume of information I've absorbed today, it's all catching up to me. I change into sleeping clothes, brush my teeth, check that the apartment door is locked even though I'm alone in the building. I lie down in Marion's bed, my bed now, I suppose, and try to sleep. But sleep doesn't come, because at 11:47 p.m. I hear something, a voice, distant, muffled, coming from somewhere below, someone crying. I sit up in bed, heart pounding. The crying is clear, distinct, unmistakable. A woman's voice, distant but audible, coming from somewhere below. Every rational part of my brain screams that this is impossible. I'm alone in this building. The crying must be wind through vents, old pipes, the acoustic tricks Marion spent 40 years documenting but never proving. But another part of me, the part I've suppressed since I was 14 years old, recognizes this sound. I've heard it before, in this building, in room 3C, when I was a teenager and Marion was trying to make me understand. I grab my flashlight and phone. No cell signal, as expected. The landline in the apartment can only make outgoing calls after 8 a.m. I'm on my own. The crying continues. Persistent, heartbroken. I should stay in the apartment, lock the door, wait until morning. This is night 1 of 7. I don't have to investigate every sound. But I'm an architect. I need to understand buildings. And this building is telling me something. I unlock the apartment door and step into the hallway. The emergency exit signs cast red light, creating deep shadows. The crying is louder out here, echoing up the stairwell, coming from below, from the middle floors. I descend the stairs slowly, flashlight beam cutting through darkness. Each floor I pass, the crying grows stronger. Second floor, nothing. Third floor, nothing. Fourth floor, still distant. Fifth floor. The crying is clear now. A woman sobbing. The sound of absolute heartbreak. And it's coming from one specific room. I check Marion's floor plan, posted on every landing. Room 5C, the southeast corner office. My hands are shaking as I approach. The door is closed. I put my hand on the knob. The metal is ice cold, impossibly cold, like touching a freezer door. But the building's heat is on. I can feel warm air from the vents. I turn the knob and push the door open. The room is empty, maybe 15 by 20 feet. 2 tall windows overlooking the street. Original plaster walls with water stains. A radiator, nothing else. No source for the crying I'm hearing. But the crying continues. In the room, all around me, as though the woman is here, invisible, filling the space with her grief. Hello? My voice sounds small, swallowed by the room's acoustics. The crying stops abruptly. The silence is sudden, complete, more unnerving than the sound itself. I sweep my flashlight around the room, looking for vents, gaps in the walls, any explanation. Nothing. The room is sealed, empty, ordinary except for the temperature. It's cold. Not just the doorknob. The entire room is dropping in temperature. I can see my breath now, white clouds in the beam of my flashlight. The thermometer on my phone reads 68 degrees in the hallway. In here, it must be below 45 degrees. That's not possible. Not without an open window or massive HVAC failure. The windows are closed. The radiator is warm. I'm about to leave when I notice the frost. On the window. On the inside of the glass. Frost is forming in patterns, spreading like crystals growing, except it's not random. The patterns are deliberate, purposeful. They're forming words. Help me. I drop my flashlight. It hits the floor with a clatter, beams spinning wildly, creating disorienting shadows. When I pick it up with trembling hands and point it back at the window, the frost is already fading. The letters blur, melt, disappear. Within seconds, the glass is clear. The temperature begins to rise. Whatever just happened is over. I stand in the empty room, breathing hard, trying to process. Frost doesn't form words. Temperature doesn't drop 30 degrees in seconds without cause. Women don't cry in empty rooms. Except I just experienced all of that, and Marion's documentation is full of exactly this. Room 5C, temperature anomalies, frost formations, a woman crying. Catherine Holloway, dead 73 years, but somehow still here, still trying to communicate. I back out of the room slowly, as though sudden movement might trigger something. In the hallway, I lean against the wall, forcing myself to breathe slowly. This is real. Whatever Marion was studying, whatever she believed, it's real. Buildings can remember. And this building remembers Catherine Holloway. I return to the apartment, lock the door, push a chair against it, even though I know that won't stop whatever is happening here. I sit at the kitchen table with Marion's sealed letter in front of me. For 7 years, I've told myself Marion was delusional, that her theories were pseudoscience, that the experiences she documented were hallucinations or delusions or the desperate attempts of a lonely mind to find meaning in random phenomena. But I just felt that cold, saw that frost, heard that crying. And unless I'm having a psychotic break, which is possible, but I don't think so, then Marion was right. Buildings can remember. With shaking hands, I break the wax seal on the envelope and unfold Marion's letter. Chapter 3. Marion's letter. Dearest Alexandra, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and you've agreed to spend 7 nights in the building. And if you're reading this on your first night, I'm betting you've already experienced something you can't explain. Good. Not because I want you to be frightened. I never wanted that. But because you need to experience before you can believe. Intellectual understanding isn't enough. You have to feel it. The building's presence, its memories, its voice. I owe you so many apologies, Alex, for raising you in this building without fully understanding what it would mean for a child to be surrounded by phenomena she couldn't process, for involving you in my research before you were ready, for that terrible fight 7 years ago when you called me insane and I was too hurt and proud to explain properly. You were right to be angry. I was obsessed. I prioritized this building and my research over your emotional well-being. I see that now. But I can't apologize for the research itself. Because Alex, I was right. Buildings remember. And the Westbrook Building remembers more than most. By now, you've probably experienced Catherine Holloway. Room 5C is where she manifests most strongly, where her final moments are recorded most clearly. The crying, the cold, the frost-forming words. Don't dismiss it. Don't rationalize it away as stress or imagination or acoustic tricks. That's what I did for the first 3 years, and I wasted so much time trying to debunk my own experiences instead of accepting what the building was showing me. Here's what I've learned over 40 years. Spaces where intense emotions occur create what I call resonance points, locations where the electromagnetic field generated by human consciousness leaves an imprint on the physical environment. Most buildings have weak imprints that fade quickly, but some buildings with specific architectural features, specific materials, specific histories, can hold these imprints indefinitely. The Westbrook Building is one such building. The limestone and granite construction, the copper electrical system, the geometric design created by my grandfather Marcus, all of it creates conditions that allow the building to store and replay consciousness. Over its century of existence, this building has witnessed profound human experiences: joy, terror, love, suicide, murder, birth, death. All of it is still here, layered like sediment in rock, playing back under the right conditions. You felt it as a child. You heard voices, you saw shadows. I saw you reacting even when you claimed you experienced nothing. You were afraid, so you suppressed it, trained yourself not to see, not to hear. Survival mechanism, I understand. I did the same thing initially. But Alex, you're an adult now, an architect, a scientist in your own way. You don't have to be afraid. The building won't hurt you. It's showing you its memories, sharing its history, asking you to witness. For 7 nights, I want you to observe. Document. Let the building show you what it showed me. On the 7th night, go to room 7A, the archives. Everything I learned is there, organised, documented, waiting for you. You'll face a choice at the end. Destroy the building, burn the research, sell the property, erase 40 years of work, or continue the research, validate it, prove to the world that I wasn't insane. I'm not asking you to decide now. I'm asking you to experience, to observe, to let the building speak to you the way it spoke to me. 7 nights, Alex. 7 nights, and you'll understand everything. I love you. I always have. Even when you were angry with me. Even when you told me you never wanted to see me again. I understood. I failed you as a guardian, but I never failed you as a scientist. Everything I did in pursuit of truth. That pursuit is yours now. With all my love, Marion P.S., room 5C, the woman you heard. Her name was Catherine Holloway. She was a secretary at Hartford Mutual during the Depression. When the company went bankrupt in 1929, she lost everything. Her job, her savings, her fiancé who left her when she could no longer contribute financially. On November 17, 1952, she came back to the building, vacant then, and fell from the 5th floor window. She was 28 years old. The official ruling was suicide. But Alex, I don't think it was. In 40 years of documenting Catherine's phenomena, I have recorded her voice hundreds of times. And what she says, what she communicates through the frost, through the temperature changes, it's not regret for choosing death. It's anger. It's accusation. It's, he pushed me, and tell someone, and help me. Catherine was murdered. And for 73 years, her recorded consciousness has been trying to tell someone the truth. She's trying to tell her story, like all the others. The building is full of stories, Alex. Stories that deserve to be heard. Will you listen? I read Marion's letter 3 times. Then, I sit at the kitchen table as dawn breaks over Hartford, watching the city wake up, trying to reconcile what I know about physics and neuroscience with what I experienced in room 5C. Buildings don't have consciousness. Memory is a biological process involving neurons and synapses. Electromagnetic fields don't store human experiences. Except, what if they can? What if consciousness isn't purely biological? What if information can be stored in physical structures under specific conditions? Quantum physics already tells us that observation affects reality, that particles can be entangled across vast distances, that information might be preserved in ways we don't fully understand. What if Marion discovered something real but couldn't explain it in terms the scientific establishment would accept? I spend the morning doing what I do best, documenting. I photograph room 5C during daylight, measure the space, check for vents, gaps, any source for cold air or acoustic anomalies. Nothing unusual, just an empty office in an old building. But when I check the temperature logs from Marion's monitoring system, I see confirmation of what I experienced. Room 5C, 12:17 a.m., temperature drop from 68 degrees to 42 degrees over 90 seconds. EMF spike. Then, gradual return to baseline over 5 minutes. The building recorded it. Independent sensors confirmed what I felt. This isn't hallucination. At 7 p.m., Robert Kane calls for his second check-in. Ms. Kane, how are you finding your first full day in the building? I experienced something last night. Room 5C, temperature drop, frost, a woman crying, just like Marion's documentation. A long pause. And how are you processing that? I don't know. I'm an architect. I understand buildings. And this building is doing something I can't explain. Your grandmother would say that's a good starting point. Acknowledgement before understanding. Will you continue the 7 nights? Yes, because I need to know if this is real. And if it is, if Marion was right about architectural memory, then everything in modern neuroscience needs to be reconsidered. Your grandmother believed you would understand? She said you had the scientific mind to see what she saw, and the architectural knowledge to explain what she couldn't. Good luck, Alex. After he hangs up, I make a decision. If I am going to do this, if I'm going to genuinely investigate Marion's claims, I need to approach it scientifically. Document everything. Record data. Look for patterns. I spend the evening setting up recording equipment in room 5C and 3 other locations Marion identified as high-activity areas. Cameras, audio recorders, temperature sensors, EMF meters, everything time-stamped and logging continuously. If the building remembers, I'm going to capture every moment. Chapter 4. The Investigation Day 3. I wake up determined to understand Catherine Holloway's story. If Marion was right, if Catherine was murdered, then there should be historical evidence. Death certificates, police reports, newspaper articles. The Hartford Public Library opens at 9 a.m. I'm there when the doors unlock. Patricia Chen, the local history librarian, is a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and an encyclopedic knowledge of Hartford's past. I'm researching a death from 1952, I tell her. Catherine Holloway. She fell from the 5th floor of the building at 847 Asylum Avenue. Patricia's fingers fly across her keyboard. Hartford Current, November 18th, 1952. She prints the microfilm record. The article is brief, buried on page 6. Local woman dies in fall. Catherine Holloway, 28, of Hartford, died yesterday after falling from the 5th floor of the former Hartford Mutual Building on Asylum Avenue. Police say Miss Holloway, who had been employed as a secretary at Hartford Mutual before its bankruptcy in 1929, apparently returned to the vacant building and jumped from a window. No note was found. The death has been ruled a suicide. Miss Holloway is survived by her mother, Mrs. Robert Holloway, and a younger sister, Mary Holloway. That's it? I ask. That's the entire coverage? Suicides were often underreported in that era, Patricia explains. Considered shameful. Families would request minimal coverage. What about follow-up articles? Any investigation? She searches. Nothing. Just the initial report and a brief obituary 2 days later. The obituary provides more details. Catherine worked at Hartford Mutual from 1926 to 1929. Was engaged to be married in 1930, but the engagement was broken after the company's collapse. struggled to find work during the Depression, eventually took a position as a housekeeper for a prominent Hartford family. Which family? I ask. The obituary doesn't say, but if she was working as a housekeeper for a prominent family in Hartford in the early 1950s, we might find mentions in society pages. We spend 2 hours digging through Hartford social registers and society columns. Finally, we find it. A brief mention in a June 1951 society page. Mrs. James Hartford hosted a garden party at her Asylum Hill residence, assisted by staff including housekeeper Miss Catherine Holloway. James Hartford. I search the name and find dozens of articles. Prominent businessman, president of Hartford Savings Bank, Republican Party leader, elected mayor of Hartford in 1954, served 2 terms until 1962, died in 1979 at age 76, remembered as a civic leader who modernized Hartford's infrastructure. More searching reveals his connection to Hartford. Mutual, James Hartford's father, Robert Hartford, had been president of the company before bankruptcy. James himself worked there briefly in the late 1920s. So Catherine and James knew each other from Hartford Mutual. She ended up working as a housekeeper in his home. 6 months after that society page mention, she was dead, jumped from the building where they'd once worked together. Do you have police records from 1952? I asked Patricia. Those would be at the police department, but files that old might be archived. The Hartford Police Department's records clerk is less helpful. Cold case files from 1952 require either a detective's authorization or a family member's petition. I'm researching family history, I lie. Catherine was my great-great-aunt. The clerk looks skeptical, but agrees to check if files exist. Leave your contact information. If we find anything, someone will call you. My next stop is the Hartford Historical Society. They have extensive files on Mayor James Hartford, photographs, newspaper clippings, biographical information. The archivist, an elderly man named Frank, leans in conspiratorially when I ask about Hartford's reputation. Off the record, Hartford had a reputation. Women. His wife stayed because that's what you did in that era, but everyone knew he had affairs. Rumours of illegitimate children, payoffs to keep women quiet, nothing ever proven. He was too powerful. Was there ever connection between Hartford and a woman named Catherine Holloway? Frank considers. Name sounds familiar. Let me check something. He returns with a folder of Hartford's personal correspondence donated by his former secretary. Inside, mostly political letters. But near the bottom, I find something else. A letter dated October 15th, 1952, handwritten, addressed to my dearest Catherine. My dearest Catherine, you must stop these threats. What happened between us was a mistake, one I deeply regret. I am a married man with a family and a political career. You cannot expect me to abandon everything because of one night of weakness. I have been generous. The position in my household, the salary well above standard rates, these were acts of compassion, not obligation. If you continue to threaten to tell the truth, you will lose everything. Do you understand me? Consider carefully what you stand to lose. Your reputation, your position, your ability to find future employment. I can make your life very difficult, Catherine. I suggest you accept the situation for what it is and move forward with dignity. This is my final warning. J.H. My hands shake holding the letter. This is evidence. Evidence of a relationship. Evidence that Catherine was threatening to reveal something. Evidence that Hartford was threatening her in return. 1 month after this letter was written, Catherine was dead. Can I photograph this? I ask Frank. The collection is public record. Photograph away. By late afternoon, I'm tracking down living relatives. Mary Holloway, Catherine's younger sister, married name Brennan, died in 2018 at 93. But she had 3 daughters. The youngest, Patricia Brennan Morrison, is still alive in West Hartford. By 5 p.m, I'm standing on her doorstep. Patricia is late 70s, white-haired, sharp-eyed. She looks at me suspiciously when I introduce myself. I'm researching the history of the Westbrook Building, I say. Your Aunt Catherine died there in 1952. I wanted to learn about her. Patricia's expression shifts, pain mixed with anger. Come in. Her living room is filled with family photographs. She offers tea and sits across from me, studying my face. You know, you look familiar, like someone I knew long ago. I don't respond to that. Tell me about Catherine. I was only 5 when she died, but I remember my mother's grief and her certainty. Certainty about what? That it wasn't suicide. My mother insisted until her dying day that Catherine was murdered. She said Catherine would never kill herself. She was Catholic, devout, and she'd been planning a trip to Boston to visit cousins. Had her train ticket purchased. You don't buy train tickets if you're planning to kill yourself. Did your mother know about Catherine's relationship with James Hartford? Patricia's eyes widen. How do you know about that? I show her Hartford's letter on my phone. Patricia reads it, then sits back heavily. My God, my mother suspected, but she never had proof. Catherine told her something happened, that Hartford had taken advantage of her when she worked in his home, that she became pregnant, that he pressured her to take care of it, which she did, because what choice did women have in 1952? Did your mother go to the police? Of course. They dismissed her, said Catherine was depressed about the abortion, about the affair, about her life circumstances. Classic suicide profile, they said. And James Hartford? He was untouchable, already being groomed for political office. The police weren't going to investigate a man like that based on suspicions of a dead housekeeper's sister. I take a breath. What if I told you I have evidence that Catherine was trying to tell her story? That she left a message? What kind of message? This is where it gets difficult. The Westbrook Building, where Catherine died, has unusual properties. My grandmother spent 40 years studying it. She documented phenomena, voices, messages, things that seemed to be recordings of past events. Catherine's consciousness, her final thoughts, somehow imprinted on the building itself. Patricia doesn't laugh, doesn't look at me like I'm crazy. Instead, she nods slowly. The building remembers, she says quietly. You've heard of this? My mother talked about it. Before Catherine died, she told my mother that the building knew what happened, that it held the truth. My mother thought she meant evidence existed somewhere in the building. But after Catherine died, my mother started having dreams. Catherine appearing to her, telling her to make them listen to the building. My mother thought she was going crazy. She wasn't crazy. Neither was my grandmother. The building does hold truths. I tell Patricia about the frost on windows, the messages, Catherine's words, "He pushed me. Please tell someone." Patricia is crying now. 73 years. She's been trying to tell her story for 73 years, and no one would listen. I'm listening now, and I'm going to prove what happened to her. How? I don't know yet. But I have 6 more nights in that building, and Catherine is still there, still trying to communicate. I'll document everything, and then I'll find a way to make people listen. Patricia reaches across and takes my hand. Thank you. My mother never got justice for Catherine, never even got acknowledgement that something wrong happened. If you can do this, if you can prove Catherine was murdered, you'll give my family something we've needed for 3 generations. Peace. I return to the Westbrook Building at sunset, my mind racing. Catherine Holloway wasn't a suicide. She was murdered by James Hartford because she was pregnant and threatening to go public. He pushed her from the 5th floor window and made it look like suicide. and because he was powerful and connected, no one investigated. But Catherine's consciousness somehow recorded in the building structure, and for 73 years, she's been trying to tell someone the truth. That evening at 7 p.m, when Robert Kane calls for his check-in, I tell him what I've learned. Your grandmother worked on Catherine's case for years, he says. She tried to get the police to reopen it, but they wouldn't. Said Marion's evidence, the recordings from the building, the temperature changes, the frost messages, weren't admissible. That they couldn't build a case on phenomena no court would accept as real. What if I could get better evidence, document it more thoroughly, show that this isn't supernatural, it's a natural phenomenon we don't fully understand yet? Your grandmother tried that too, but by then her reputation was destroyed. No one would take her seriously. But I'm not Marion. I'm an architect with no history of controversial research. If I can document this properly, if I can show the scientific community that architectural memory is real, then maybe Catherine can finally get justice. After we hang up, I go to room 5C. I set up my laptop, cameras, recording equipment. I sit in the centre of the room with a notepad and pen. At 2:17 a.m, exactly when Marion's logs show peak activity, the temperature drops. I feel it physically, wave of cold that makes my breath visible. At 2:19 a.m, the crying starts, louder than before, as though Catherine knows I'm here, knows I'm listening, knows I believe her. At 2:22 a.m, frost appears on the window. Not random, deliberate. Letters forming slowly as though she's gathering strength. I didn't want to die. He made me. James Hartford, November 17th, 1952. I write frantically, copying every word. I was going to tell about the baby. He couldn't let me. Please someone listen. The message holds for 30 seconds, long enough for my cameras to capture it from 3 angles, long enough for me to photograph it with my phone, to record video, to document this moment completely. Then the frost fades, temperature rises, the crying stops. But something has changed in the room. The atmosphere feels lighter, as though Catherine knows, finally, that someone is listening, that someone believes her, that someone is going to help. I hear you, I say aloud to the empty room. I hear you, Catherine, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what James Hartford did to you. I promise. A cold breeze touches my face, gentle, like a hand, like gratitude. I gather my equipment and return to the apartment. For the first time since arriving, I feel purpose. I'm not just here to fulfill a will's requirements or to understand Marion's research. I'm here to give voice to the forgotten, to bring justice to the silenced. And Catherine Holloway is just the beginning. Chapter 5. The Others, Day 4. If Catherine's recorded consciousness exists in this building, what about the others? Marion's documentation shows 14 primary phenomena, 14 stories, 14 people whose intense experiences left imprints on this building. I decide to investigate them systematically, to document each one, to understand what Marion was really studying. The second phenomenon on Marion's list, Wilhelm Grosch, the basement. Marion's notes describe a German immigrant who worked as the building's maintenance supervisor from 1932 to 1934. According to her research, Wilhelm was murdered in the basement during a thunderstorm on August 3rd, 1934. The official record called it an accidental fall down basement stairs. Marion believed it was a hate crime. Wilhelm beaten to death by anti-immigrant activists during an era of rising nationalism. The basement is vast, full floor plan with low ceilings, a maze of mechanical rooms and storage spaces. I set up equipment in the area Marion marked as the primary hotspot. According to her notes, Wilhelm's phenomena are most active during thunderstorms. But Marion also documented a technique, playing specific sound frequencies could sometimes trigger recorded consciousness to manifest outside their usual conditions. She used 7.83 Hz, the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic frequency of Earth itself. Her theory was that human consciousness operates at frequencies that resonate with this fundamental frequency, and triggering it in the building could stimulate memory playback. I set up a tone generator and play the frequency through speakers. At first, nothing. Just the hum of building systems and the echo of my own breathing. Then, temperature drop. Not as dramatic as Catherine's room, but noticeable. The EMF meter begins to spike, and I hear a voice, male, accented, angry, speaking German. Sie haben kein Recht. You have no right. Footsteps, heavy, running, multiple people. Then impact sounds. A body hitting concrete, grunting. The sounds of a struggle. Someone being beaten. A sickening crack. Then silence. I'm shaking. I just heard a man being murdered. A murder that happened 91 years ago, somehow preserved in the electromagnetic structure of this building. I play back my recordings. It's all there. Clear audio of a violent confrontation, temperature drop from 64 Fahrenheit to 51 Fahrenheit, EMF spike from 0.3 to 12.4 milligauss. I spend the next 3 hours researching Wilhelm Gross, Hartford Public Library archives. Patricia Chen helps me navigate German-language newspapers from the 1930s published for Hartford's immigrant community. I find Wilhelm's obituary in the Hartford Deutsche Zeitung from August 1934. Wilhelm Grosch, 47, died August 3rd in an accident at his place of employment. Mr. Gross, a respected member of the German community and beloved father, is survived by his wife Anna and 3 children. Services will be held at St. Michael's Lutheran Church. An accident. Just like Catherine's death was ruled suicide. But when I dig deeper into Hartford police records from 1934, I find something. A report dated August 4th. 3 men questioned about Wilhelm Gross's accidental death. Names: Richard Porter, Thomas Brennan, Edward Sullivan, all members of a patriotic society, code for KKK. All released without charges. Cause of death determined to be accidental, fall down basement stairs. Except, I've heard what really happened. Wilhelm was beaten to death, murdered for being German immigrant in an era of xenophobia and rising nationalism. And the police covered it up. Marion had documented all of this. She'd found the same records. She'd tried to bring attention to Wilhelm's case, to get it reopened, to give his family justice. No one listened. But now I have recordings, audio evidence, temperature and EMF data, documentation that something happened in that basement, something traumatic enough to imprint on the building structure. Next, the 3rd floor. The children. Marion's notes are disturbing. A daycare operated on the 3rd floor from 1972 to 1979. She documented children's laughter, children's voices, children crying. But she also documented something darker, evidence of abuse. I set up equipment on the 3rd floor at 2 p.m., the time Marion noted as most active. The space still shows signs of its daycare past. Faded wall murals of animals and ABCs, chalk outlines on the floor where play areas once existed. A forgotten teddy bear in a corner, moth-eaten and filthy. At 2:17 p.m, I trigger the Schumann resonance tone. At first, laughter, the sound of children playing. It's almost pleasant, except for the wrongness of hearing children's voices in an empty, abandoned floor. Then the voices change. Crying. A child's voice, maybe 5 or 6 years old. No, please, I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. An adult woman's voice, harsh and cold. Bad children don't get snacks. Bad children sit in the dark room until they learn to behave. The sound of a door closing, a lock clicking, a child sobbing behind the door. Then silence, except for faint crying that goes on and on. I follow the sound to a corner room, probably once a storage closet. The door is locked, but I find a key on Marion's ring labelled 3rd floor storage. I open the door. The room is tiny, maybe 6 by 8 feet. No windows, just concrete walls and a bare bulb overhead that doesn't work. And on the walls, scratched into the plaster with something sharp. Fingernails, maybe, or a found object. Names, dozens of children's names, scraped into the walls. And tally marks, counting marks, hours locked in isolation. Tommy. There's, 3, Sarah. There's, site, Michael. There's, 21 marks. 21 hours locked in a dark closet. This was the dark room, where Dorothy Fletcher, who ran the daycare, punished children by locking them in isolation for hours, sometimes overnight. I photograph everything. Then I research Dorothy Fletcher. She's dead, died in 1995. But I find records. The daycare closed abruptly in 1979 after complaints from parents. No charges were ever filed. No formal investigation. Marion, who just purchased the building, simply refused to renew Fletcher's lease. But the children who suffered here, where are they now? In their 50s, probably. Living with trauma they might not even remember clearly. Abuse that was never acknowledged, never addressed, never punished. Marion had documented their recorded consciousness too. The laughter and crying and fear imprinted in this building, trying to tell their stories. By the end of day 4, I've investigated 12 of Marion's documented phenomena. Each one tells a story of injustice. A woman named Eleanor Jang, who died in childbirth in 1945 because the building's owner refused to call a doctor, fearing scandal. She was unmarried. A black janitor named Marcus Johnson, beaten by police in 1968, falsely accused of theft, never charged but never compensated. A teenager named Tommy Rivers, who overdosed in 1983, dealing drugs for an adult supplier who was never investigated. A homeless man who froze to death on the unused 6th floor in 1997, never identified, buried in a pauper's grave. Each echo in this building represents an unresolved trauma, a story that was buried, a life that was forgotten or deliberately erased. And Marion spent 40 years listening to these stories, documenting them, trying to find justice for the forgotten. I understand now why she became obsessed. This isn't about proving a scientific theory. This is about moral obligation. Once you hear these voices, once you understand that they're real people whose traumas are still crying out for acknowledgement, you can't unhear them. You can't walk away. Chapter 6. Marion's Secret, Day 5. I'm deep in Marion's documentation when I find something strange in her medical records. Marion died from cancer, officially. Pancreatic cancer, metastatic, terminal. But when I read the autopsy report more carefully, I noticed an inconsistency. Time of death, 6:47 a.m., October 28, 2025. Cause, organ failure from cancer. But Marion's last journal entry is dated October 28, 6:15 a.m., 32 minutes before she died. I find the entry. October 28, 2025, 6:15 a.m. This is my final entry. In approximately 30 minutes, I will die. Not from cancer alone, though it's killing me, the pain is unbearable, but from my choice. I've been taking hospice morphine in increasing doses for the past week. This morning, I'll take a final dose, enough to ensure peaceful death within the hour. But before I do, I'm going to room 7A. I'm going to do what Marcus did accidentally when he died in this building in 1961. I'm going to record my death, my consciousness, my final moment. If my theory is correct, if this building truly can record human consciousness under the right conditions, then I'll be the first person to do it intentionally, with full awareness. with scientific protocol running. I've set up every sensor, every recording device, everything documenting what happens when a human consciousness transitions from biological to whatever comes next. If consciousness can be stored in matter, if the building can preserve it, then I'll become part of the building. Forever. Alex will find this. She'll understand, and she'll continue the work. I'm not afraid. I'm curious. As a scientist, death is the ultimate experiment. And if I'm right, it's not an ending. It's a transformation. Time to begin. I stare at the journal entry, hand shaking. Marion didn't just die from cancer. She orchestrated her death, made it a final experiment. I run to Marion's laboratory, search through her equipment, find a hard drive labelled October 28th, 2025, final recording. I plug it in. The files are time-stamped. Video begins at 6:20 a.m. On screen, Marion, frail, dying. But her eyes are bright with determination. She's in room 7A, sitting at her desk, surrounded by equipment. Every sensor active, every recording device running. "Alex," she says to the camera, "if you're watching this, you've completed enough nights to start understanding. You've heard the voices, Catherine, Wilhelm, the children, all the forgotten ones whose stories are preserved here." She pauses, breathing laboured. "I'm dying. Cancer is too advanced. Pain is unbearable. I could wait for natural death, maybe 2 more weeks of agony. But why? When I can make my death meaningful?" She holds up a bottle of morphine. "I'm taking a lethal dose. It will take about 30 minutes. And I'll be right here in this building, with every sensor recording what happens when my consciousness transitions." She swallows pills, lies down on a cot in the corner. "I'm not afraid, Alex. I'm excited. If my theory is correct, I won't really be gone. I'll be part of the building, part of its memory. You'll be able to find me here." The video shows the next 25 minutes, Marion's breathing slowing, vital signs changing on the monitors. And then, the moment of death, every sensor goes wild. Massive electromagnetic spike, temperature drop, seismic vibration. The building recorded her death, intentionally, scientifically. Then the video ends. I sit in shock. Marion didn't just study architectural memory. She became part of it, deliberately transformed herself from a biological consciousness to whatever exists in this building. "Marion?" I say aloud to the empty laboratory. "Are you here?" Silence. Then warmth. Not physical heat, but a presence. A feeling of being wrapped in something gentle and loving. And a voice. Not audible, not external. In my mind, but distinct from my own thoughts. "I'm here, sweetheart. I've always been here. This building is my final gift to you. My consciousness, preserved forever. You're never alone." Tears stream down my face, for the woman I thought had abandoned me, for the grandmother who loved me so deeply that she turned herself into part of the building so she could always be near me. "I understand now," I whisper. "You weren't crazy. You were brave. Braver than anyone." The presence intensifies. Love, approval, pride. Marion's consciousness is here, in this building, forever. Chapter 7. Marcus's Archive. Day 6. According to Marion's letter, I should go to room 7A tonight. The archives. Everything she learned, organised and waiting. The 7th floor has been locked since I arrived. 7 different locks on the door. Marion really didn't want unauthorised access. It takes me 20 minutes to work through all of them with the key she left. The door opens. Room 7A is vast, maybe 3,000 square feet. Every inch of wall space covered with Marion's organised research. This isn't the chaotic accumulation of the lobby. This is systematic, professional. 40 years of work organised into a coherent argument. One wall, Theoretical framework. Marion's hypothesis about architectural memory, backed by citations from physics, neuroscience, material science, architectural acoustics. Equations. Diagrams showing electromagnetic field interactions, references to quantum consciousness and non-local information storage. Second wall. Methodology. Experimental designs. Equipment specifications. Data collection protocols. 40 years of refinement. Third wall. The cases. All 47 documented instances of architectural memory in this building, each with a complete file. Historical background, recorded phenomena, verification attempts. Fourth wall. Results, charts showing patterns, correlations between architectural features and memory strength. Environmental conditions that enhance or suppress playback. In the center, Marion's desk, computer, filing cabinets, and something else. Another journal, old, leather-bound, the cover embossed with a name, Marcus Westbrook, my great-great-grandfather, the architect who designed this building. I opened to the first page, Journal of Marcus Westbrook, Architect, October 1920. Today, I begin the design of what may be my life's masterpiece, a building that will not merely shelter human activity, but preserve it, capture it, hold it forever. My research into sacred architecture has revealed something extraordinary. Certain geometries, certain materials, certain acoustic properties can create spaces that interact with human consciousness in profound ways. Cathedrals that inspire awe, temples that induce trance states, monuments that evoke collective memory across generations. But what if we could be more deliberate? What if we could design a building specifically to record human experience, to become a living archive of everyone who passes through it? This is my ambition, a building that remembers. I read faster, my heart pounding. February 15th, 1921. The site is purchased, 847 Asylum Avenue, Hartford. The materials are specified, limestone and granite with high quartz content for electromagnetic properties. Copper, wiring throughout. Expensive, but essential for conductivity. Geometric design based on sacred ratios. Phi, the golden rectangle, the Vesica pishes. Every element calculated. If I succeed, this building will outlive me. It will become more than architecture. It will be conscious. April 3rd, 1921. Construction begins. The workers think I'm mad, insisting on specific quarries for limestone, copper wiring when steel is cheaper, geometric proportions that waste space. But they don't understand. Every material, every angle, every acoustic property has been calculated for a single purpose, to create a resonance chamber for human consciousness. September 15th, 1921. First death. A worker, Michael O'Brien, fell from third-floor scaffolding today. Died instantly. The other workers want to abandon the project. They say the building is cursed. But I felt something tonight when I walked through the unfinished structure, O'Brien's presence, his fear in that final moment, his regret about leaving a wife and infant son. The building recorded him, just as I hoped. I know how this sounds, but I felt him, his consciousness imprinted in the limestone where he fell. This isn't imagination. This is physics we don't yet understand. February 1st, 1923, completion. The building is finished. I've spent every night here for the past 3 months, documenting phenomena, voices, temperature fluctuations, electromagnetic anomalies, all correlating with emotional events during construction. I've proven my hypothesis. Buildings with specific properties can store consciousness, not supernatural, natural, a recording mechanism built into matter itself. But who will believe me? I'm an architect, not a scientist. If I publish these findings, I'll be ruined, my reputation destroyed, my family shamed. so I keep silent, and I wait. Perhaps someone in my family, my daughter Eleanor or her children, will discover what I've created. Perhaps they'll have the courage to prove what I could not. June 12th, 1961. Final entry. I'm dying. Heart disease, the doctors say. Weeks at most. I've returned to the building, my masterpiece. I want to die here, to become part of what I created. If my theories are correct, my consciousness will be preserved in this structure. I'll become part of the building's memory, forever witnessing, forever present. Eleanor thinks I'm sentimental, that I want to die in the building I designed. She doesn't know the truth, doesn't understand what this building really is. But perhaps her daughter, Marion, will understand. She's brilliant, curious, scientific. If anyone can prove what I discovered, it's her. This is my legacy. Not the building itself, but what the building contains. Proof that consciousness survives, that memory transcends biology, that we are more than flesh and neurons. I'm ready. Let the building take me. The journal ends there. Marcus Westbrook died in this building on June 18th, 1961. Heart attack in his office on the 7th floor. This room, probably. 3 generations of Westbrooks. Marcus, who designed the building to be a consciousness recording device. Eleanor, who never understood. Marion, who spent 40 years proving her grandfather's vision. And now me, the 4th generation, inheriting not just a building, but a profound discovery about the nature of consciousness itself. Marion's voice, not audible, but present, whispers in my mind. Now you understand. This building was created intentionally. Marcus built it to prove consciousness survives beyond biology. I spent my life validating his vision, and now you have the chance to show the world what we discovered. The building is yours, Alex, but more than that, the responsibility is yours to continue the work, to give voice to the forgotten, to prove that consciousness transcends death. What will you choose? Chapter 8. David arrives. Day 7 begins with a phone call. Alex, it's David. I'm at Hartford Airport. Where are you? What? David, why are you in Hartford? Because I've been reading the articles about your grandmother's research. Because I've spent the past 5 days thinking about what you said, about buildings storing consciousness. And because you're my partner and my friend, and you've been alone in that building for 6 days, and I needed to make sure you're okay. He arrives at the Westbrook Building at 10 a.m. I meet him at the front door, suddenly self-conscious about how I must look, unwashed, exhausted, probably wild-eyed from nights of little sleep and overwhelming discoveries. David steps out of his rental car, looks up at the building's facade and stops. Alex, he says slowly, I can feel it, even from here. The building, it's different. Different how? Like it's aware, watching, assessing me. He turns to me. That sounds insane, doesn't it? No, it sounds exactly right. Come inside. I have so much to show you. I take him through everything. The lobby with Marion's 40 years of documentation, the laboratory with its sensors and recording equipment, the recordings of Catherine, Wilhelm, the children, the evidence of murders and abuse and forgotten deaths. David listens with the focus he brings to complex structural problems, asking questions, examining data, approaching it all with scientific rigour. But I can see belief growing in his eyes. This is real, he says finally. Alex, this is actually real. Buildings can store consciousness. Yes, and if Marion was right, if Marcus was right, then everything we know about architecture needs to be reconsidered. We don't just design spaces for function and aesthetics. We're creating environments that will record and preserve the experiences of everyone who inhabits them. David's excitement builds. Do you realise what this means? We could design buildings intentionally for this, healing spaces for trauma, memorial spaces that preserve not just names, but actual experiences. We could revolutionize the entire field. His enthusiasm is infectious. For the first time since arriving, I feel not alone in this. Someone else understands. Someone else sees the possibility. Stay, I say impulsively. Not just for today. Stay and help me figure out what to do with this. I'm an architect specializing in adaptive reuse. You're an architect with a physics background. Together, we can make this credible to the scientific community. David looks at me for a long moment. Alex, I've been thinking about this for the past 5 days. About you. About us. We've been partners for 5 years, but you've always kept distance. Never talked about family. Never let me too close. Now I understand why. You were running from this, from the building, from Marion, from a legacy that terrified you. He steps closer. But now you're facing it, and I want to be here. Not just as a business partner. As David, I'm not asking for anything now. I'm just saying, when you're ready, when this chaos settles, I'm here. For you. Not just for the research. My throat tightens. For 5 years, I trained myself not to see David as more than a colleague, not to develop feelings that might complicate our partnership. But now he's standing in the building that taught me to listen to what I've been suppressing, and I realise I've been suppressing more than just architectural memory. Stay tonight, I say quietly. Experience the building, room 5C at 2 a.m. Catherine needs to meet you. And then we'll talk about the institute we could build, about everything else. That night, David experiences room 5C. Catherine speaks to him, different words than she showed me, adapted to his consciousness. He hears her story, sees the frost-form words, feels the temperature drop, documents it all with the rigour of an engineer who's just witnessed something that shouldn't be possible, but undeniably is. Afterward, we sit in Marion's apartment until 4 a.m, drinking coffee, talking about quantum consciousness and architectural acoustics, and what it means that buildings can preserve human experience, and gradually talking about us. I was afraid, I admit. After leaving here at 18, I thought, better not attach to anyone, not care too deeply, because caring means risking loss, and I'd already lost too much. David takes my hand. The building taught you something, I think. All these echoes, Catherine, Wilhelm, the others, they're all about people who cared so deeply that their emotions imprinted on matter. Caring isn't weakness. It's what makes us strong enough to leave a mark on the world. He's right. The building is teaching me. Don't be afraid to feel deeply, because those feelings are what remain. By dawn, we're partners in a new way. Still professional. The Institute will need both our expertise, but also something more. Something I've been afraid to name, but the building already knows. Marion's presence, I can feel it in the warmth of the walls, the gentle vibrations, radiates approval. Chapter 9. Senator Hartford. What if I could show you Catherine's own testimony, her account of what happened? Detective Santos looks at me skeptically. You mean through your grandmother's phenomena? Yes, and I know that sounds impossible. But what if I could demonstrate it, show you documented evidence that this building preserves consciousness in measurable, recordable ways? She considers. I'd need to witness it myself, and even then I'm not sure any court would accept it. I'm not asking for criminal prosecution. James Hartford is dead, but his legacy is still honoured in this city. His grandson is a state senator. The Hartford family's reputation and political power stem from James Hartford's supposed integrity. If we can prove he was a murderer, if we can give Catherine official acknowledgement, that means something. It means justice, even 73 years late. Santos looks at her watch. All right, show me. But, Miss Kane, I'm a skeptic. I deal in physical evidence, not ghost stories. Good. I prefer skeptics. They make better witnesses. That evening, I arrange what I know will be the most important demonstration of my life. Detective Santos arrives at 7 p.m., bringing 2 other witnesses, a police forensic specialist named Dr. Lisa Chen and a Hartford Courant reporter named James Murphy. But there's one more person I need. I call Senator Richard Hartford's office. Senator Hartford, this is Alex Kane. We need to talk about your grandfather. I have nothing to say to you. Then, listen. I have evidence that Catherine Holloway was murdered by James Hartford in 1952. I have his threatening letter to her. I have testimony from her family. And I have something else. Catherine's own account of what happened. I'm inviting you to witness it tonight. If you're confident in your grandfather's innocence, you should be willing to see the evidence. A long pause. What kind of evidence? The kind that will challenge everything you think you know about reality. But if you want to protect your grandfather's legacy, you need to see this. Because if you don't come tonight, I'm going to the press with everything I have, and you'll have no chance to respond. Another pause. Tonight? Where? The Westbrook Building, 847 Asylum Avenue, 8 p.m. Bring your lawyer if you want. Bring witnesses. This needs to be documented properly. Senator Hartford arrives at 8 p.m. with an entourage, his attorney, 2 aides, and his own video crew. He's in his early 70s, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. He looks at the building with barely concealed disgust. This is where my grandfather supposedly committed murder? This decrepit building? This is where Catherine Holloway died, I correct. Whether it was murder or suicide, let's let her tell us. I lead the group to room 5C. David has set up multiple cameras, temperature sensors, EMF meters, everything to document what's about to happen. Detective Santos and Dr. Chen examine the equipment, confirming its legitimate scientific instrumentation, not stage magic props. The room is currently 67 degrees, Dr. Chen notes. No open windows, no obvious source for temperature variation. Senator Hartford crosses his arms. Ms. Kane, I'm here as a courtesy, but if this is some kind of elaborate hoax, it's not. Just watch, and be open to what you're about to experience. I check my watch. 8:17 p.m. Not the usual time. Catherine typically manifests between 2 and 3 a.m. But Marion's notes indicated that with enough emotional resonance, with the right consciousness present, the building could be triggered outside standard times. And Senator Hartford is the right consciousness. Catherine's killer's grandson. The man who inherited James Hartford's legacy. I close my eyes and speak to the building. To Marion's presence, to Marcus's vision, to the consciousness that dwells in limestone and copper and geometric precision. Catherine, if you can hear me, if you can manifest. This is Senator Richard Hartford, James Hartford's grandson. He needs to hear your story. Everyone here needs to hear it. Please, show us what happened. For 30 seconds, nothing. Senator Hartford smirks. His attorney checks his watch. One of the aides whispers that this is a waste of time. Then the temperature drops. Dr. Chen gasps. Temperature falling rapidly. Now, 62 degrees. 58, 54. This shouldn't be possible. What the hell? Senator Hartford steps back as his breath becomes visible in the air. The EMF meters begin to spike. Every sensor in the room is registering anomalies. The building is responding. And then, crying. A woman's voice, clear and distinct, filling the room. Not from speakers. not from any physical source. The sound seems to come from the walls themselves, from the very air. "Oh God," whispers James Murphy, the reporter. "Oh my God!" Senator Hartford goes pale. "This is a trick. Hidden speakers." "There are no speakers," Detective Santos says, her voice shaking. "I checked the room myself. I don't know what this is." The crying intensifies, heartbroken, desperate, and then frost begins to form on the windows. Not random patterns, deliberate letters spreading across the glass like handwriting. Richard Hartford, his name. Catherine is addressing him directly. "Your grandfather killed me." "No." Senator Hartford staggers backward. November 17th, 1952. I was 28 years old. He came to this building. The frost continues forming, faster now, as though Catherine has been waiting 73 years for this moment and won't be stopped. Said we needed to talk, 5th floor this room. I told him I was pregnant, told him I would go public. Senator Hartford sinks into a chair, face in his hands. "Stop! Please stop." But the frost doesn't stop. He said I was lying, said I was trying to ruin him. He grabbed me, pushed me toward the window. I fought. I begged. He pushed harder. The temperature in the room is now 42 degrees. Everyone's breath forms clouds. The EMF meters are reading off the scale. Every camera is recording. Every witness is seeing this. I fell. 5 stories. I died on the street. He called it suicide. Everyone believed him. He was powerful. I was nothing. Then, directly to Senator Hartford. "You knew." Senator Hartford looks up, tears streaming. "What?" "You found letters after he died. Letters from women. He hurt you, burned them to protect his name." Senator Hartford breaks down completely. "I was 22. I didn't know what to do. My mother said to protect the family. That grandfather's legacy was more important than old accusations. I made the wrong choice." The frost holds, waiting. Detective Santos steps forward. "Senator Hartford, for the record, are you acknowledging that you had evidence your grandfather harmed multiple women?" "Yes." His voice is barely a whisper. "I found letters, payoff agreements, legal settlements, at least 8 women. I burned them. God forgive me, I burned them." "Tell the truth." The frost forms new words. "Tell everyone clear my name, let me rest." Senator Hartford stands, faces the window where Catherine's words are written in frost, and speaks directly to her. "Catherine Holloway, I am sorry. I am so deeply sorry for what my grandfather did to you, for what my family did by covering it up. You deserved justice. You deserved to be believed. I will make this right. I promise you, I will make this right." The frost begins to fade, but before it completely disappears, one final message forms. "Thank you." Then, the temperature rises. The crying stops. The EMF meters return to baseline. The presence that filled the room, Catherine's consciousness, preserved for 73 years, withdraws. But everyone in the room has been changed by what they witnessed. The next morning, Senator Richard Hartford holds a press conference. With cameras rolling, with reporters from every major outlet present, he makes a statement. "I have learned information about my grandfather, James Hartford, that I can no longer ignore. Historical evidence, combined with testimony I witnessed last night at the Westbrook Building, has convinced me that my grandfather was responsible for the death of Catherine Holloway in 1952. The room erupts. Questions shouted from every direction. Hartford raises his hand for silence. "I am formally requesting that the Hartford Police Department reopen the investigation into Ms. Holloway's death. I am also requesting that the Hartford City Council remove my grandfather's name from all public buildings currently bearing it. The Hartford family has benefited for 70 years from a reputation built on lies. That ends today." He pauses, composing himself. To Catherine Holloway's surviving family members, I am profoundly sorry. My grandfather took your loved one. My family covered up his crime. I cannot undo that harm, but I can acknowledge it. I can ensure that history records the truth. Catherine Holloway did not commit suicide. She was murdered by my grandfather, and she deserves to be remembered not as a suicide, but as a victim who sought justice even beyond death. The story explodes nationally. Senator admits grandfather's murder. Architectural memory phenomenon gains credibility. Catherine Holloway, case reopened after 73 years. Within a week, I received dozens of calls. Universities wanting to study the building. Scientists interested in architectural memory. Netflix wanting to make a documentary. Publishers wanting book deals. But more importantly, families with unsolved cases asking if the building can help. Historians wanting to document forgotten stories. Architects wondering if buildings they work with might contain similar memories. The paradigm is shifting, slowly, but undeniably. Epilogue. 1 year later, I'm standing on a stage in Vancouver, looking out at 1,500 people at the TED conference. Scientists, architects, philosophers, thought leaders. The theatre is silent as I finish telling Catherine Holloway's story. When I inherited the Westbrook Building a year ago, I say, I thought buildings were just matter, stone and steel and glass, objects we inhabit but that don't really participate in our lives. Behind me, the screen shows photographs of the building. Marion's laboratory, room 5C with frost-written messages. Marcus Westbrook's original architectural drawings with sacred geometry notations. I was wrong. Buildings are not passive containers. They're active participants in human experience. They record our joys, our traumas, our most intense moments. And under certain conditions, specific materials, specific design, specific environmental factors, they preserve those recordings and play them back. I show brain scans from the research team at MIT. This isn't supernatural. It's not ghosts. It's a natural phenomenon we're only beginning to understand. People experiencing architectural memory exhibit unique neural patterns, different from both normal memory recall and hallucination. This is something real, something measurable, something that challenges our assumptions about consciousness, about memory, about the nature of information storage. I show the building's technical specifications. The Westbrook Building was designed intentionally by my great-great-grandfather Marcus Westbrook to be a consciousness recording device. Limestone and granite with high quartz content, copper electrical systems, geometric design based on sacred ratios. Every element calculated to create what he called a resonance chamber for human experience. The audience is riveted. I can see belief and skepticism warring on faces, which is perfect. Good science requires both. For the past year, I've been working with researchers from MIT, Yale, and Hartford University to study this phenomenon. We've documented temperature anomalies, electromagnetic field variations, and audio phenomena in the Westbrook Building that correlate with historically documented events. We've published preliminary findings in peer-reviewed journals. I show our first published paper, Architectural Resonance Phenomena in Historic Structures in Consciousness Studies Quarterly. We don't fully understand the mechanism yet. Current theories involve quantum consciousness, electromagnetic field interactions, and what we're calling environmental information storage. But we know this. Consciousness can interact with physical structures in ways that mainstream science has not previously acknowledged. I pause, letting that sink in. What does this mean practically? It means we need to reconsider how we design buildings. If spaces can record human experience, we have an ethical obligation to create environments that preserve what matters: healing, love, joy, transformation, rather than trauma and suffering. It means we need to reconsider how we preserve historic buildings. They're not just architectural artifacts, they're living archives of human consciousness. And it means we can finally give voice to the forgotten. Catherine Holloway was murdered in 1952. The police called it suicide. For 73 years, her voice was silenced. But the building remembered. The building preserved her truth. And finally, she was heard. The screen shows Catherine's official death certificate, updated 6 months ago. Cause of death changed from suicide to homicide. Her name cleared. This is just the beginning. The Westbrook Building is now the Marion Westbrook Institute for Spatial Memory. We're training researchers to study similar phenomena in other historic buildings. We're developing protocols for documenting and preserving architectural memory. We're working with cold case detectives to investigate unsolved crimes where buildings might hold evidence. I show our team: Dr. Chen Yuki from MIT, Detective Maria Santos, David Chen, my partner in every sense of the word, and 20 other researchers from around the world. Buildings are not just shelter. They're witnesses. They remember. And if we learn to listen, if we develop the science to decode what they're telling us, they can teach us profound truths about consciousness, about memory, about what it means to be human. I take a breath. My grandmother, Dr. Marion Westbrook, spent 40 years trying to prove this. The scientific establishment dismissed her. She died alone, considered a failure. But she was right. And now, finally, her work is being validated. The screen shows Marion's photograph. Young, in her Yale laboratory, brilliant and hopeful, before the fall. Marion, if you can hear this, and I believe you can because your consciousness is part of the Westbrook Building now, thank you. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for pursuing truth even when it cost you everything. Thank you for showing me that buildings are more than matter. They're memory. They're consciousness. They're alive. The audience rises in a standing ovation. But I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at the photograph of Marion, and I swear I can feel her presence here in this theatre, proud and vindicated and finally at peace. After the conference, David and I returned to Hartford, to the Westbrook Building, our home now. We've converted Marion's apartment into our living space. The rest of the 8th floor is offices for the Institute. Floors 2 through 6 are being carefully restored, not renovated into something new, but preserved, maintained, respected for what they contain. The first floor remains Marion's laboratory, now expanded with cutting-edge equipment. We have teams of researchers cycling through, studying the building's properties, documenting phenomena, developing theories. That evening, I stand alone in room 5C. It's quiet now. Catherine's presence has shifted. Not gone, but peaceful. She got what she needed. Justice, acknowledgement, rest. Thank you, I say to the empty room. Thank you for trusting me with your story. A warm breeze touches my face, though the windows are closed. Like a gentle goodbye. I take the elevator to the 7th floor. Room 7A, the archives. Marion's desk is exactly as she left it. I sit in her chair. We did it, Marion, I say to the presence I know is here. Your work is being validated. Universities are taking it seriously. We have funding, research teams, peer-reviewed publications, everything you hoped for. The warmth of Marion's consciousness surrounds me. Not words, but feelings, love, pride, gratitude, peace. I understand now why you were so obsessed. This isn't about proving a scientific theory. It's about moral obligation. These voices, Catherine, Wilhelm, the children, all the forgotten ones, they deserve to be heard. And you spent 40 years making sure they would be. I pull out Marion's final journal. the one where she recorded her decision to make her death the ultimate experiment, to become part of the building. You're here, aren't you? Not just your recorded consciousness, but you, still thinking, still aware, still guiding this work. The presence intensifies. Confirmation. Then, I have a question. What's next? Where does this research go from here? And suddenly I know. Not words spoken, but understanding transmitted directly. Marion showing me what she sees from her transformed perspective. Other buildings. Hundreds of them. Thousands. All over the world. Historic structures that preserve consciousness, waiting to be heard. Voices crying out from concentration camps, from slave quarters, from battlefields, from forgotten hospitals and asylums and prisons. Stories that need to be told, traumas that need acknowledgement, injustices that need correction. And I understand, this is the work. Not just studying the Westbrook Building, but learning to listen to all buildings, teaching others to hear what they're saying, becoming advocates for the voices preserved in matter. I understand, I whisper. We'll do it. We'll teach the world to listen. 3 months later, David and I are in Berlin, standing in what remains of a Gestapo interrogation facility. Our equipment detects the same patterns we found in Hartford: electromagnetic anomalies, temperature variations, acoustic phenomena. The building remembers the people who suffered here. And for the first time in 75 years, someone is listening. A survivor's granddaughter stands with us crying. My grandmother died in this building. They said she was interrogated for 3 days before her heart gave out. But no one ever documented exactly what happened. No one recorded her story. The building did, I tell her gently, and we're going to help her tell it. 6 months after that, we're in New Orleans, in a warehouse that was once a slave auction house. The building's memories are overwhelming, centuries of trauma, of families torn apart, of human beings treated as property, but also resilience, resistance, the quiet defiance of people who refused to be erased. A historian who specializes in slavery stands with us, witnessing as we document the phenomena. This changes everything, she says. We have written records, archaeological evidence. But this, the building preserving the actual voices, the consciousness of enslaved people, this is unprecedented. It's just the beginning, David says. There are hundreds of buildings like this, thousands, all holding stories that official history never recorded. 1 year, 3 months, and 17 days after Marion's death, I stand in the Westbrook Building's lobby at midnight, alone. The building quiet around me. I've learned to feel its presence now. Not just Marion's consciousness, but the building itself. Marcus's vision made manifest, a century of accumulated consciousness woven into limestone and copper and sacred geometry. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand, I say to the building, to Marion, to Marcus, to all the voices preserved here. I'm sorry I ran away. I'm sorry I called you crazy, Marion. You were the bravest person I've ever known. The building responds, not with words or visions, but with feeling, forgiveness, welcome, belonging. I'm home, not just in the physical structure, but in the work, in the purpose, in the understanding that buildings are not just matter, they're memory, consciousness, truth. I think about Marcus Westbrook, designing this building in 1920, hoping someone in his family would understand what he'd created. About Marion, spending 40 years in isolation, refusing to give up. About all the voices preserved here, waiting decades or centuries to be heard. And I think about the future, about the institute we're building, about the researchers we're training, about the thousands of buildings around the world that hold similar truths. This is the work of generations. But we've begun. As I climb the stairs to the apartment, to David, to the life we're building together, I feel the building's pulse beneath my feet. 72 beats per minute, like a heartbeat. Because buildings do have hearts, they have consciousness, they remember, and finally, after a century of waiting, the world is starting to listen. The end.